For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warmer from below. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Rob Donaldson, who does such great work over at the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and we're going to be chatting about some of the games that we've got for Wednesday, what he's been really able to make a lot of money on last few days. He's been on a good run. He's going to be sharing some of his tricks and tools of the trade there, and in the final segment, I'm going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Wednesday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, naming does not matter, so as per usual, please send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but everything that is powered by Edge Boost. Over at Edge Boost, they make sure that bettors are able to access their funds 24/7, 365 on leap years, 366 days out of the year, and that is because with Edge Boost, it's not running on credit or anything like that. It's an account that you're able to access at any time of day, and you're able to get all of your gambling transactions approved. And additionally, when you go to edgeboost.bet, type in the promo code of Greg, that is GREG, you're able to get a $1 match for up to $25 on that first deposit. That's with the promo code of GREG. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Tuesday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Cleveland Guardians get the job done against the Minnesota Twins by a count of 2-1. Relatively long rain delay in this one. We saw a lot of bad weather out there in the northeast part of the country, but for the Cleveland Guardians, they were able to get a solid start out of Tanner Bybee. He does allow a solo home run over the course of 7 innings as Ty France. He was trying to be win France, but unfortunately nobody else helped him out because he scored the lone run of the game for the Minnesota Twins. That was home run number 3 of the campaign, and Chris Paddock wasn't too bad himself. He also gives up 1 solo home run over the course of his 5 innings of work, and then from there you had Brock and Roll Stewart, Griffin Jax, you on it on, all land a scoreless inning before Louis Varland. He gives up a walk-off home run to Kyle Manzardo, his 8th of the campaign. Prior to that, it was Bo Naylor going deep. He was able to provide home run number 3 of the season. So the Cleveland Guardians, they do find a way to be able to get the job done. And if you're looking at your top over teams and your top under teams in all of baseball, it's been a very interesting blend this far this season. But the Baltimore Orioles, they have been able to cash a lot of overs at home. And on Tuesday, it was because their pitching was just absolutely awful. For the New York Yankees, a 15-3 win over Baltimore as Kyle Gibson makes his first start of the season. And boy, did this not go as planned. 3 2/3 innings. He allowed 9 runs, all of which were including 5 home runs. Cody Bellinger, who hasn't been able to hit the broadside of barn all season, 3rd home run season. Aaron Judge is 9th. Trent Grisham is 8th. The Bat Boy, his 1st home run of the season. Austin Wells just hit it Wells off of Mr. Brian Baker, his 5th home run of the campaign. And Ben Rice, he goes deep twice off of Gibson. 7th and 8th home runs of the campaign for Baker. He allowed a solo home run in his inning of work. Ciano Perez, an unearned run, give it up in his inning of work. Charlie Morton's out coming out of the bullpen, 2 1/3 innings. He allowed 1 unearned run, and Matt Bowman gives up 3 runs in an inning. He did have Gunnar Anderson go deep off of 1. Carlos Rodon for his 3rd home run this season. As for Rodon, he gives up 2 runs in 6 innings. Ian Hamilton goes for 2 scoreless innings, and Tyler Madzik, he lends an inning. He does give up a run along the way. For the Chicago Cubs, they did a really nice job of being able to take it to the Pittsburgh Pirates as they become one of your better over teams thus far this season. 9-0 the final is for the Chicago Cubs. 18 overs, 10 unders, and 2 pushes. And for the Cubbies, you were able to get a quartet of home runs. Pete Armstrong, 6th home run of the season. That comes off of Andrew Heaney. Carson Kelly goes deep off of Heaney, his 7th home run of the season. And then Colin Olderman does not hold it down against Dansby Swanson, his 5th home run of the season. And Seiya Suzuki gets home run number 7 of the campaign for Heaney. Gives up a pair of bombs, 4 runs in total in 4 2/3 innings. innings. Joey Wentz, well, he went out there and gave up 2 runs in a third of an inning. Kyle Nicholas, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless, but then you had a pair of guys in Hunter Stratton along with Colin Holderman give up a solo home run. Stratton 2/3 of an inning, Holderman a inning, and then David Bednar does land a scoreless inning, but Shota Imanaga was tremendous in this one. 5 scoreless innings, does allow 6 hits, but bends but does not break. Daniel Plencia, Caleb Theobar, both land a scoreless inning, and Tom Cusgrove was able to end 2 scoreless innings of his own. Lots of scoreless innings out there in Tampa Bay as the Kansas City Royals get a 3-1 win. And for the Kansas City Royals, it has not been a great start to the season, but you've got Bobby Witt Jr. now having a 20-hit streak, and I'm talking about for their offense, as they're actually .500 because their pitching has been solid, and Michael Lorenzen was solid in this one. 1 run allowed over the course of 6 innings. That was a solo home run to Junior Caminero, 6th home run of the season, and Taj Bradley wasn't bad in this one. 2 runs allowed in 7 innings. Manuel Rodriguez, a scoreless inning. Eric Orzi, his first run allowed of the season, gives up a run in an inning, but for the Royals, the bullpen is able to put it on lockdown. Carlos Estevez, Lucas Urceg, Anel Zerpa, all on a scoreless inning. Bowden Francis, it felt like was due for a little bit of regression, and boy, oh boy, the regression monster ate him whole. 10-2, the Boston Red Sox take it to the Blue Jays, as for Francis, he gives up 5 bombs, 7 runs in total over the course of 3 innings, as you had Rafael Devers get his 5th home run season, Alex Bregman his 6th, Jaron Duran his 2nd home run season, Wilder Abreu, he wiles out to his 6th home run season, and then Christian Campbell, home run number 4 of the season, and Garrett Crochet, 2 runs allowed in 7 innings. He does allow a home run to Vlad Guerrero Jr., starting to get online, 3rd home run of the campaign, and then from there, for Boston, Luis Guerrero, along with Brandon Bernardino, both on his scoreless inning, while Dylan Tate, 1 1/3 inning scoreless for Toronto. Casey Lawrence does give up 3 runs in 2 2/3 innings, and Mason Fluharty, he was able to come in and he locked it down for 2 scoreless innings, and for the New York Metropolitans, they took it to the Arizona Diamondbacks. This by a count of 8-3 as Eduardo Rodriguez gives up all 8 runs in 4 innings, including a trio of bombs. Starling Marte of the Marte Parte, 2nd home run season. Francisco Lindor his 6th. Pete Alonso his 7th. And David Peterson, great name and great performance. 1 run allowed in 5 innings. You did have 2 runs in 2 innings allowed by Kevin Harrigan, and then Jose Buto, 2 scoreless innings for the Mets. Meanwhile, for Arizona, Ryan Nelson in long relief, pretty solid, 4 scoreless innings. So 4 score for that, but a little bit too little, too late on that front. For the Philadelphia Phillies and Washington Nationals, things got overwhelming late, as for the Phillies, they do get the 7-6 win, as Mackenzie Gore, not great, not terrible in this one, allows a pair of bombs, 3 runs in total over the course of 6 innings, as Kyle Schwarber took him deep for his 8th home run season, and then Umando Sosa, home run number 1 of the season. Zach Wheeler, pretty similar performance. He gives up 2 runs in 6 2/3 innings, and he did give up a home run of his own, as Luis Garcia, 2nd home run of the season. Then you had Nathaniel Lowe get low in the 9th inning. Orion Kirkering, who was really having a struggle right now, gives one up, his 6th home run of the season, as Kirkering gives up 4 runs out, only 1 of which was earned in his inning of work, as you had Trey Turner down for what, have a pretty bad throwing error out there. Matt Strom in out of the bullpen scoreless, Jose Alvarado, a scoreless inning, but this was a game where the Philadelphia Phillies were up by a count of 5-2 going into the 9th inning. If you, like me, had the under, well, Washington, with their 4 runs in the 9th, made things very overwhelming to say the least, and then you had Jorge Lopez on to scoreless inning, Jose Ferrer gives up 2 runs in a 3rd of an inning, Lucas Sims, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless, and then Kyle Finnegan on for the save, and he did anything but that. Allows 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning, as Bryson Stott scores on a walk-off wild pitch. So that game was wild and crazy to say the least, and what is not wild and crazy is what we're seeing out of the Chicago White Sox. It's just crazy how bad they are. 7-2, the Milwaukee Brewers get the job done here, as you had home run number 1 for Mr. Collins in this game, as the young gun Isaac Collins is able to go deep off of Tyler Gilbert, who served as the opener in this game. He goes 2 innings, allows that solo home run. Bryce Wilson, the former Brewer, 3 runs allowed in 3 1/3 innings. You had Brady Eisert give up a run in 2/3 of an inning, and then Mike Vassell, scoreless inning. Penn Murphy is scoreless inning, and Jared Schuster does give up a run in his inning of work. Good news is, Luis Robert gets his 11th stolen base of the season, and for the White Sox, they did belt a pair of solo home runs off of Mr. Freddie Peralta. Both came in the 1st inning. Andrew Benintendi, 5th home run of the season. Luis Robert, his 4th, and looked promising for the White Sox, but they would not score from there. Peralta gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings. After Uribe, Yo Piamps, along with Craig Yoho, they all lend a scoreless inning, so the Brewers get an easy win, and at the very least for the White Sox, they're not the Colorado Rockies, who are 4-25 this season. They're on pace to go 22-140. 8-2, the Atlanta Braves get the job done here, as AJ Smith-Schwaber gives up 2 runs in 5 1/3 innings. He does allow a home run, as going deep for Colorado. You had Michael Toglia get home run number 3 of the campaign, and German Marquez was not great. 7 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings. Doesn't give up any homers, but just a lot of general contact in general, as Michael Harris had it going in this game. Jimmy Erget, 1 2/3 innings scoreless. You had a scoreless inning out of Scott Alexander. Seth Halverson gives up a run in an inning, and for the Braves, bullpen was rock solid. You had Angel de los Santos give you 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Rafael Montero and Scott Blewett, they both led a scoreless inning as well. So the Atlanta Braves starting to get online. The Miami Marlins, well, they were fish fried in this game. 15-2, the LA Dodgers get the job done as Shohei Ohtani, well, he put on a showtime. 7th home run season, and Andy Paez gets home run number 6 of the campaign. That comes off of, boy, they had this guy pitch in a game a few days ago as well. Javier Sanjoa, the backup left fielder who had to make his second appearance in 4 days, and he gives up 3 runs and 1 1/3 innings, now rocking a nice 13.50 ERA, as Sandy Alcantara did not have it in this one. 5 walks, 2 2/3 innings, 7 runs, all of which were earned, and then you had from there 2 1/3 innings scoreless out of Tyler Phillips, and George Soriano gives up 5 runs, 4 of which were earned, and he got 5 outs, so that's not too great. And for the LA Dodgers, they had Jack Dreyer as an opener in this game, give up 1 run in 2 innings for Matt Sauer, who was solid, 1 run allowed in 5 innings. Luis Garcia and Kike Hernandez close it out with scoreless innings, and for the LA Dodgers, they went 11 of 19 with men in scoring position, so that was rather fun. And for the San Diego Padres, they slammed down on the San Francisco Giants, this by a count of 7-4, and for the San Francisco Giants, 17 overs, 12 unders, and a push. They have been one of your better over teams thus far this season. And for the Padres, you had a relatively solid go of it for the bullpen, as they currently have a sub-2 ERA. Jeremiah Estrada gives up a run in 2/3 of an inning. Worst start of the season for Nick Pivetta. Still not terrible, though. 3 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings. He does allow a home run to William Adames, who finally did something. 2nd home run of the campaign. But Adrian Barahone, Jason Adam, Robert Suarez, they all lend a scoreless inning. And then for San Francisco, you did have Logan Webb, and his home and road splits very much well noted on this podcast. 5 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings. Eric Miller, Lou Trevino, they both lend a scoreless inning. And then you had Randy Rodriguez give up 2 runs over the course of his 2 innings of work for the Seattle Mariners. They do get the job done against the LA Angels. 5-3 final in this one. As for the Halos, Logan O'Hoppe hopped one out against Mr. Carlos Vargas, his 8th home run of the season for Vargas. He does give up that solo home run in his inning of work after Bryce Miller, pretty solid in terms of not giving up contact, but did walk 5 in 5 innings, but kept it scoreless. Colin Slater from there, a scoreless inning, and then you did have Gabe Spire allowed 2 runs in 1/3 of an inning. Casey Lugumina, 2/3 of an inning scoreless, and Andres Munoz, he was able to go for a scoreless inning. And for the Halos, Jack Conowitz, not great, not terrible, 3 runs allowed over the course of his 6 innings. He did allow a home run, though, as Jorge Polanco belts his 8th home run season. Then he was able to get home run number 9 of the campaign, as that one comes off of Mr. Jose Fermin, who he allows 2 runs in 1/3 of an inning before you have 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless from Garrett McDaniels. And someone else that was able to go yard, the Houston Astros, 6-4. They're able to take it to the Detroit Tigers, as for the Astros, it has been a rough go of it for them thus far this season, but they go 4 of 7 with men in scoring position. Ryan Gusso does allow a home run in his 4 1/3 innings, allowing 2 runs, as you had Kerry Carpenter get his 7th home run season. Josh Hader does give one up to Gleyber Torres, 3rd home run season. It was an on-stage situation for Hader. He does give up 2 runs in his inning of work, but the rest of the team was solid, as Bennett Sousa, 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Taylor Scott, Brian Abreu, they both lend a scoreless inning. And for Detroit, Reese Olson did not have it in this one. 3 runs allowed in 5 2/3 innings. And then Will Vest, 3 runs allowed in his inning of work. You had Kenta Maeda clean up a scoreless inning, and Chase Lee not out of the bullpen scoreless, but Astros looking to get back online, and I believe that they are back above 500, as the Walker Texas Rangers are also above 500. They have been your best under team in all of baseball this far this season. They had played just 1 game to the over at home prior to the day on Tuesday, but 15-2, they absolutely slam the Athletics. As for Hogan Harris, well, this was not Hogan's Heroes. He gives up 2 runs in 2 2/3 innings. The opener of Jacob Lopez gives up 3 runs in 2 2/3 innings, and then this was not great. Noah Murdoch, he got 0 outs, and he gave up 7 runs. His ERA is now 14.79. When your ERA is greater than the year that the Gutenberg press was invented, you know that things are going wrong for you. And that's the case for Johnny Pereda, who's the backup catcher, who came in and gave up 3 runs in an inning. TJ McFarland, 1 2/3 innings scoreless, but you did have Shea Langoliers go deep in this one. Shea Bangs, his 6th home run season. That comes off of Dane Dunning, and he was not stunning, giving up 2 runs in 3 innings, but who was stunning was Jacob deGrom. 6 scoreless innings and 65 pitches. So for the Texas Rangers, some nice, good domination out there. And what has been dominant has been taking a look at unders as far this season in Major League Baseball. Now, we're starting to see a few more overs be able to hit the board, but still, over the last 7 days, 52.9% of games are going under the total. 46 unders, 41 overs, and a few pushes along the way. And favorites, they've been pretty rock solid this year as well. How about a 65.2% hit rate to favorites in terms of the money line over the last 7 days at 58-31? if you're looking overall, the season favorites are at 270 and 168 on the money line. That's 61.6%. And the under, that is sitting right around about 51.5%, 215 unders to 202 overs. So that's where we're looking at baseball right now, and that's what we all got on Tuesday. Now let's take a look at things for Wednesday, and what's all been catching for our good friend Rob Donaldson next right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Rob Donaldson aboard. Does great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. Taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. He's over on youtube.com/Rob Donaldson, slinging out some great picks, whether that be on the college basketball front when that's in season, football, baseball, you name it, he does it. And you're able to follow him on Twitter/X at RobDFB altogether. And Rob, great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Greg. It's been a fine little 5-day stretch here for me. Well, a lot of wins, a lot of cash and bets, and yeah, thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
And how about if we do start right there? Just what have you found that has been so successful for you over the last few days, and just what has been really catching for you?
Well, I think a lot what kind of happens through the first month of any sports season, but in particular baseball, is a lot of people really kind of grow enamored with ERAs or batting averages or teams just kind of slumping. And the reality of May, June, July is this is a positive and a negative regression sport. And if you can kind of key in on the guys who maybe are getting unnecessarily punished, I think of like a Dylan Cease, for example, who's just been getting shelled with a lot of like singles and liners that just pile up into, an inevitable 3-run bomb. And all of a sudden he's got an ERA in the 7s. That's a guy that I want to back for pretty much the rest of the way because I know that it's going to turn eventually. And then if you look at a team like the Braves, who were injured at the start of the year, I look at that as kind of a buy low opportunity. So if you are looking at buy lows, sell highs on players or teams, right now, this moment that we're in, I think is the best time to do it.
I do think that this is a very fine time to be able to do so as well. And I know that you were just talking about Dylan Cease being one of those guys. Or a few other ones that you look at, what are some of the characteristics that you do take a look at? Are you looking at like high strikeout guys that aren't giving up a lot of walks, or is it something different altogether?
Well, I wouldn't say that I have a vendetta against the high strikeout guys, but in terms of the full game market, I do feel like the high strikeout guys are a little bit overrated because they are constantly running their pitch counts up when you also do have that power stuff, maybe like a velocity or that just kind of ability or that aggressiveness to go out and challenge hitters. You do run into a lot of extra base hits and just those kind of, you're rolling along throughout the game through 3 innings, and then all of a sudden a 2-run bomb happens and it completely shapes up the outing. And despite the fact that those guys are the all-stars and the people that, the players that people gravitate towards, I think there's a lot of value in fading those power pitchers and those pitchers with stuff when it comes to a full game market. But, in particular, if you want to look at, soft contact versus hard contact, I look at a guy like a Carmen Mazinski for the Pirates tomorrow. He's not necessarily going to be the best pitcher in all of baseball, I would say, at any point in his career because the strikeouts aren't there. But he does a really good job at limiting hard contact. And against a team like the Cubs, who might be in a little bit of a sell high territory, I actually like the Pirates for that reason.
Hey, ironically enough, that's one that I'm taking a look at as well, and I'm noticing that total is currently at a 9. How do you take a look at that total? Because the Cubs, they entered into Tuesday leading all of baseball in terms of run scoring, but I do think that there's going to be a little bit of regression. Now, I do think that what we're seeing out of like a Kyle Tucker is for real. I think that C.A. Suzuki is going to be withstanding. I think that he's going to be rock solid, but I do think that there's going to be a little bit of a tapering off there, and as we both know, Pittsburgh, a little bit more of a pitcher's ballpark.
I think you nailed it on both points, where I think we're getting such a high total because of what the Cubs have done offensively in the early going. And also, when you just pull up, Carmen Mlodzinski's numbers, you're going to see a near 7 ERA. And if you're kind of comparing that thought process of, man, the Cubs have been a juggernaut offensively, and they're going up against a righty who gives up a lot of runs, a lot of people are going to like, the Cubs tomorrow, they're going to like the over. But this is where I think you buy on the under, and you buy in the Pirates with a guy that I think is going to see positive regression in Carmen Mlodzinski, and a guy on the other side of Matthew Boyd, who I think he's actually pitching true to form in terms of his numbers, a 2.54 ERA. But I really do think ultimately we know the back of his baseball card. It's going to be somewhere around the 4 ERAs when it's all said and done. And so I do think there's a lot of sell high opportunities on the Cubs right now. And I think there's a little bit of a buy low in this particular matchup.
Yep, I think that is so well said, and I am right there with you. I like the under, and getting that big of a plus number on the Pirates, I'm going to be looking there, as we always look to one of our good friends in Mr. Rob Donaldson right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And I look at this spot, and I think that's so interesting. The Dodgers are right now darn near minus $3 favorites, with Tony Gonsolin making his first start in about a year and a half. Last we saw him was the 2023 season, going up against Cal Quantrill, which I think that's fair to say. Cal Quantrill has been hit really hard this year, but how do you take a look at a matchup like this with the Miami Marlins, who, they're not a great offense, they aren't a great bullpen, but getting this big of a number against a guy in Tony Gonsolin, who I think that he has been one of the most lucky pitchers in baseball this decade. It's one of those spots where they have made me an offer I can't refuse on the Miami Marlins.
I am 100% with you right there. And what we've seen from guys making their first start of the season because of a delayed sort of injury. I mean, I look at like a Kyle Gibson going up against the Baltimore Orioles, and all of a sudden they're hitting 5 home runs in their first 6 batters. And is it always going to be that much of a disaster? Absolutely not. But I do feel like when you have a guy making his first start of the season and it was delayed due to injury, it really kind of comes down to 2 things. 1, he's probably not going to go deep into the game. And 2, there's very good upside on betting on the other side because of potential absolute disaster at this point in the season. And the last time we saw Tony Gonsolin in 2023 in August, he was giving up 10 earned runs to the Miami Marlins, and they hit 5 home runs off him. A little bit.
I remember that game.
Yeah, I was back into the Miami Marlins in that game too. I remember being very, very pleased with the early onset of that game. And do I think the Marlins are as good offensively as that team was? I do not, but I'm 100% on the Miami Marlins money line, and I'll also be potentially backing the over there as well.
Yeah, I remember back in 2023, I was at my local Smith's picking up some zucchini, and all of a sudden, holy zucchini, Tony Gonsolin has given up 10 runs, and I had to throw out there the tweet that he had become a human piñata, which always gives me great joy whenever I'm able to tweet that. So, good moments. We are both in on that one, so that is nice to see. And are we both in on this one? Because I take a look at Michael King being like a minus 130 or so favor for the Padres, and I recognize that the Padres are banged up with their lineup with guys like Jackson Merrill and company out, but this is one that's right now speaking to me. I'm not sure how you take a look at Giants versus Padres, but after the Padres got swept by the Rays last weekend at home, I think that this is a good buy low spot on them.
Yeah, and also when you look at Landon Rupp on the other side for the Giants, he's a guy that when he has the strikeout stuff going for him, and he's a guy that can theoretically hit 10 strikeouts in any given game, he looks really solid. But there are some days where if the strikeouts aren't there, he is getting lit up with hard contact, and the Padres strike out the least in all of Major League Baseball. So I do feel like there's going to be balls put in play, even with the injuries on offense for the Padres, and that I do think spells kind of somewhat of a disaster for the Giants, for Landon Rupp in the early going. And, to your point, this is a little bit of a sell high on the Giants, who have been red hot out the gate. And I do think to some degree it is sustainable, but in terms of this series, especially playing on the road against a pitcher in Michael King, who I think has looked really impressive, that's a really tall order, especially with a nice little buy price on the money line for the Padres in this spot.
Yep, Michael King certainly has been a king thus far this season, so I'm right there with you, and I do think that there's quite a bit of value there. And what else I think is going to be very interesting is whatever doubleheaders in the heck we get with regards to the slate on Wednesday, because we already know that we're going to get at least one. As we're recording this, we know that we're going to be getting the Reds and the Cardinals as a doubleheader. Now, just because we see a rain out on Tuesday doesn't automatically mean that it's going to be a doubleheader on Wednesday, but how are you going to be playing the Reds versus Cardinals doubleheader and just any other ones that we do get in general, because that's going to cause for some very interesting handicapping angles.
The biggest thing with doubleheaders, in particular when you have one that features the same exact kind of slated pitchers as the previous day, is just make sure that the weather patterns aren't going to mess with your handicap angle if you did have an angle in the Cardinals-Reds game. And, you look at Miles Mikolas, Brady Singer. I was pretty bullish actually on the Cardinals because Miles Mikolas has looked pretty darn sharp outside of literally one outing this season, and that's surprising. I don't know how long it can continue, but his underlying numbers are good, his surface numbers are good, and the Cardinals lineup in terms of each individual player, they have a lot of guys swinging a pretty good bat right now, and Brady Singer has been getting tagged up just a little bit. I feel like this is a really good buy spot on the Cardinals in a plus money situation. In terms of that second game, if you want to bet a full game angle, I think you got to really watch what the bullpens end up doing, because if Ryan Helsley's toast is JoJo Romero's toast, you don't want to be back in the Cardinals, I think, for a full game scenario, because their bullpen is not in a good situation in the early goings here. So that would be kind of my look at the doubleheader spot. And ultimately, if you do want to bet game 2, just be very, very wary about those full game angles.
And I think that it's so intriguing to take a look at the Cincinnati Reds in particular as well, because they had that massive outlier a few days ago against the Baltimore Orioles where they put up that 24 spot. How much do you want to be taking a look at some of these teams that they might have some sort of a big giant outlier? You might mention it with Miles Mikolas having just one absolutely horrible start that has tanked his metrics. Emerson Hancock is a guy that I'm looking at on Wednesday. He had that terrible first start, and in his last 2, he's looked rock solid as well. And I think that there's a lot of value buying in on guys that their metrics look terrible, but it's all because they had one bad game, and because the sample size is so small, it's just completely warping everything else.
That is 100% on the dot, because we are so young into the season so far where at best you have starting pitchers with 5 starts to their name. And if they gave up, say, 8 earned runs through 2 innings pitched, I think of like a Tyler Glasnow, for example, it doesn't matter if they were throwing 7 innings pitched and 2 earned runs throughout the other games that they started. Their ERA is still going to be kind of, surprisingly high in this early onset. And that's where I feel like the public market, you can kind of take advantage of them, because that's not going to be true to form. And if a guy goes out there and gives you 5 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, or 6 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, that's going to be a really good shot for that team to win the game. And that's where I think gets overlooked in the margins. You don't need to be a Shohei Ohtani. You don't need to be a vintage Chris Sale. You can win with a lot of these average pitchers on any given day. And that's what's just the nice thing about playing 162 games.
Oh, it certainly is. And I do think that moving forward, we're going to be seeing a lot of these guys being able to show a little bit of positivity, showing some just good, shall we say, value on the betting board as well. So I'm right there with you on that front end. Is there anything else that you're going to be taking a look at in terms of slate for Wednesday? Because we're going to have at the very minimum 16 games, might actually be a little bit more than 16 games, but we've got a lot out there, and I know that there's a few games that you're looking at in particular.
We've talked a little bit about guys kind of making their first start back from injury, and the last time we saw them, they weren't very sharp, and how do we analyze that? And I look at a guy like a Lucas Giolito starting for the Boston Red Sox tomorrow for the first time this season, and kind of similarly to Tony Gonsolin, he didn't pitch at all last season, and the last time we saw him in 2023 with Cleveland, exactly. He was not a sharp pitcher. He was getting absolutely shelled every single time he took the bump, and I get it. Once upon a time, he had some crazy stuff, and I think a lot of that was kind of linked to the sticky substances crackdown in terms of when he kind of fell off. And, the Blue Jays on the other side, they are a team that in the Rogers Center can really swing the bats well. I think they're going to get after him. We'll see who Toronto starts. I think it might be Jose Barrios, but regardless of who's on the bump for the Blue Jays, I'm liking team total angles, and I'm liking run line angles in that spot.
Yep, with the Blue Jays, it's very interesting because it was looking like Jose Barrios a little bit before. Over the last few minutes, it's looking like it might be Casey Lawrence, which means that you might be able to get a full game over as well, because Casey Lawrence is probably not going to lend a lot of length as well. If it were to be Jose Barrios, by the way, you know as well as I do. Love him at home. don't love him on the road. So that's always the angle that we want to take a look at. And an angle that I always want to take a look at is getting great guests on the show, much like you, Rob. You do such an amazing job handicapping this great game of baseball. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Well, hey, Greg, it's always a blast to come on here and talk ball with you. And, for those who want to follow my bets on a daily basis, you can do so on Twitter/X at RobDFB and also on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Rob Donaldson. But as always, Greg, I appreciate having me on, man.
Always great to be able to have Rob aboard. He does such an amazing job breaking down this great game of baseball, and every single time he joins me, he lends such great insight. So a big thanks to Rob for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Wednesday as we touch a ball.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Rob Donaldson. He does great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights. He did so once again today, so a big thanks to Rob for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Wednesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81, and we are indeed going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go to the National League games first, then the American League games. The lone interleague game is going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So how about if we do get things started with 901, 902 on the betting board? The Miami Marlins hit the road. They're facing off against the LA Dodgers. The season debut of Tony Gonsolin is on tap for the Dodgers, and Cal Quantrill is on the bump for the Miami Marlins. The total on this game is 9.5. The over is anywhere between -105 to a -115. The under is between -115 to a -105 for the LA Dodgers. They are pretty Mondo-sized favorites here. I'm seeing them as low as about a -265, as high as -295. Right now, top number that I'm seeing on the Miami Marlins is right around about a +245. I'm seeing a +235 out there as well, and I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Miami Marlins. I'm doing this before the timelines come out, and I'm thinking I should be able to get at least a +250 on this one. I'd be willing to take a +240 or higher on Miami. Tony Gonsolin just flat out isn't good. Like, he didn't make a single start during the 2024 season, and if you go back to when he was pitching in 2023, he had a 4.90 some odd ERA, a 5.43 fielding independent, 1.7 home runs, 3.5 walks per 9 innings. That 1 year where he had like 1 loss and 16 wins in 2022 was one of the luckiest years I've ever found in my life. Now, I'm not saying Cal Quantrill is good. North of a 7.7 ERA, a 5.50 fielding independent. He's been giving up north of 1.3 home runs per 9 innings. His walks are up. He gets no strikeouts whatsoever. But being able to get this sort of a plus number is something that I'm going to be willing to do. Now, with the Miami Marlins, other than Matt Mervis, you don't necessarily have a ton of guys that are hitting for power, but you do have guys that are able to move the line for this team, as you've had Xavier Edwards do a nice job of being able to get north of 340 on base. I know that he hit for a cycle last season. You've been able to get some relatively good production as well out of Kyle Stowers, who came over from the Orioles last trade deadline. Eric Wagaman is starting to give you a bit of something. Like I said, not a lot of power outside of Matt Mervis. He's the only guy on the roster with 7+ home runs, but do have guys moving the line. Griffin Conine being on the injured list hurts his team, but Augustin Ramirez, the fact that he has 3 home runs in his first 23 career at-bats, do have to like that for the Miami Marlins. It is a little bit shaky with the bullpen. You've got the Anthonys, Anthony Bender, Anthony Veziano. Really don't have a lot of faith in either of those guys, so Bender has been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. Lake Bakar has actually been a really good long guy for this team, along with Ronnie Enriquez. Calvin Fauché has been a little bit shaky, though. You've been trotting out there a cavalcade about different guys like George Soriano and company that just flat out have not gotten the job done. And for the LA Dodgers, this is a bullpen that has been quite taxed thus far this season. They've dealt with a lot of injuries. Blake Trine, Brusar Gratterall, guys like this being out has really hurt them. You've been able to get some good production out of the likes of Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates and company, so you do like to see that. And Ben Casprias has been a long guy, and I expect the LA Dodgers to go to more of those long guys. I expect that he's going to be able to get a few innings. Perhaps he go with a little bit of Noah Davis as well if he doesn't throw too much on Tuesday as well. As on Tuesday, they had to mix and match as well, so that hurts them. Yandris Gomez, who just came over, he's going to probably factor into this game. And then you have Shohei Ohtani, who continues to give you a 392 on base. It's been a little bit cold with the deep ball here in the last few games, but you know what? He's been rock solid all season long. Teoscar Hernandez, 9 home runs entering into yesterday. He's been able to do a good job. Kike Hernandez has 9 total hits, but 5 of them have flown over the fence, so there's that. And Tommy Edman doing a great job of hitting for power, but Max Muncy, Michael Conforto, Hernandez, who I mentioned before, hitting below the Mendoza 200, could use a little bit more there, and I do think that this number has just gone a little bit too far. I'm going to take a plus 240 or higher on the Marlins money line, and did something to a 9.2. I do think that the Dodgers are going to get Gonsolin out there relatively quick, and I don't think that he's going to have a long leash, so in on the under and in on that Marlins money line. 903, 904 on the bank were the Atlanta Braves. They are on the road. They're facing off against the Colorado Rockies. Chase Dollander is on the bump for the Rocks, and Chris Sale hopes to not sell for the Atlanta Braves. The Braves are massive favorites, anywhere between minus 235 to a minus 250. Meanwhile, between plus $2 to plus 210 is that number on Colorado, with the total being 10. The over is at a minus 115 to a minus 120. The under is anywhere between even at minus 105, and I'm doing this as a lot of books do not quite have run line prices out yet on this game right now. The initial run line price that I'm seeing on the Atlanta Braves, somewhere in the neighborhood about a minus 150 to a minus 155 delay run half, and I'd be willing to go up to a minus 155 on that Braves run line. I did set their money line price at a minus 231, so north of a plus 230 to take a shot on the Colorado Rockies, who, man, they're on pace for some bad history. This team entered into yesterday with 4 wins. This is all sorts of rough. Even at home, they haven't been good. Now, at home, at the very least, they're averaging about 5 runs per contest, but for Chase Dollander, I think that he's got a future in this league, but he's given up 8 home runs in his first 4 starts. When your home runs per 9 rate is at 3.7, you're going the wrong way down a one-way street, and when you're pitching at Coors Field, that really doesn't make things a whole heck of a lot better. Now, it has been an Atlanta Braves team that has been inconsistent with their offense, to say the least, but you are starting to be able to get these guys firing on all cylinders. Marcell Ozuna, he was the one guy that really hit for the team last year. He, once again this year, has been able to just find a way on base. 5 bombs and a 470 on base going into yesterday. Austin Riley has been able to find it. 6 home runs in his first 120 or so at-bats, hitting north of a 280. You've had Nick Allen actually move the line for the team. I have my question marks as to how long lasting that's going to be. Sean Murphy, out of his 13 hits thus far this season, 7 of them have flown over the fence. So got these guys producing, and Alex Verdugo coming back is starting to give this team a bit more average as well, because I just don't know how long guys like Eli White, Nick Allen are going to be able to continue their production. And Matt Olson, still a little bit shaky in my opinion for the Colorado Rockies. This is a team that doesn't have a lot of power. Jordan Beck did enter into yesterday with 5 home runs, so do like to see that. And you've been able to have Hunter Goodman move the line for this team as well. Goodman is up to 5 home runs of his own, about a 350 on base entering into yesterday. Obviously, it's a Colorado Rockies team that hits a whole heck of a lot better at home rather than away from home. Away from home, they're continuing at about a $190. At home, they've been hitting closer to 241, but still, hitting at 241 at Coors Field is honestly not that good. Michael Tuglia, when he's been out there, he's been hitting north of a 300 for the team when he's been at home. But you've got Ezekiel Tovar right now dealing with injury. You've got Chris Bryant once again back on the injured list. Ryan McMahon just hasn't given you a lot. Heck, at home going into yesterday, hitting just a 225. And this is a Rockies bullpen that honestly has been a little bit better this year than they have been in past years. You've got a pair of guys in Jimmy Arrieta, Jake Bird, who have been able to give you a sub-3.5 ERA, but Victor Vodnik is on the injured list. Tyler Kinley is a guy that I have no faith in whatsoever. Anel Javili is terrible. And for the Atlanta Braves, Rocio Iglesias, he does a nice job of being a lockdown closer for this team. And additionally, I do think that you're going to be able to get Desbel Hernandez firing on all cylinders. He's continued to be good all season long. Aaron Bummer, a little bit shaky, and you do have some trepidations with this bullpen. But all in all, I do think that Chris Sale is going to be able to get back online, because while the ERA is sky high, the fielding independent and the advanced numbers show that he's still been a rock solid pitcher. He's not quite the same guy that posted up a fielding independent that was a sub 225 last season, but even with his ERA at 540, he's still got a 363 fielding independent. He's getting 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He has given up 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, but 300 runs or fewer in each of his last 3 starts. I think that he's rounding into form. I do like the Braves up to a minus 155 on this run line. It did set my total at 10.3 with the way that Dollander is giving up bombs, so also went on the over. 905, 906 on the betting board. The San Diego Padres play host the San Francisco Giants. Landon Roop is on the bump for the Giants, and Michael King hopes to be the king for the Padres. And the Padres, who find themselves anywhere between minus 123 to minus 130 favorites, and between plus 110 to plus 115 is that number on San Francisco. 7 is the total. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. And for the San Diego Padres, I did set them as a minus 146 money line favorite, so I'm going to be willing to lay this number for the San Diego Padres. It has been a bunch has fallen on some tough times over the last few days with the injuries that they have suffered in the lineup, but the pitching has still been superb. Michael King, he's been able to give you a sub 225 ERA as far as the season. Fielding dependent is sub 3 as he's getting about 10.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. He is giving up in that neighborhood about 3 walks per 9, but keeps the ball in the yard, and he's backed up by a bullpen that entered into yesterday with a 161 ERA. Led all of baseball with that regard, and everyone in this bullpen has just been really supreme in general, as you've had the likes of a Yuki Matsui, Jeremiah Estrada, Audrey Morejon step up as good long guys, and then Robert Suarez, Jason Adam, they're able to close the door for the team. Now for the San Diego Padres, obviously it's a big deal that Jackson Merrill is currently on the injured list. That does hurt them quite a bit, but Fernando Tatis Jr., 8+ homers, he's been able to above a 300. Manny Machado hasn't necessarily given you a ton of power, but he's still finding a way to move the line. Having Luis Arias being out of there, that hurts, but you still have someone like Jose Iglesias who's able to get on base, and the catcher spot is a little bit rough, but Elias Diaz can sometimes provide a little bit of pop. And for the San Francisco Giants, they have not gotten anything out of Willie Adames this far this season, yet this has still been one of the better offenses in all baseball. Now, Tyler Fitzgerald has been in and out of the lineup recently due to injury, but we've had Jungle Lee do a nice job hitting above a 300 for the team. He's starting to find a little bit of power. You've got Matt Chapman, who's not necessarily hitting for the world's greatest batting average, but right around about a 400 on base. And Lamont Wade Jr. entered into yesterday hitting a $110 with 1 home run. That's bad, but for Mike Yastrzemski being able to give you nearly a 400 base, that's been solid. And this has been a Giants bullpen that has had some long guys really be able to step up for the team. Hayden Birdsong has been able to give you a sub 2 ERA. You got the likes of Tyler Rogers, Alonte Eric Miller being able to step up. Emilio Duvall has been a role that ice over the last few seasons, but it looks like he's starting to find that good form once again. So it is a very interesting circumstance with Landon Roop throughout his career, less than a home run allowed per 9 innings, but he is a little bit wild. He has given up throughout his career north of 3.5 walks per 9 innings. Strikeout stuff is relatively solid, but I do think that Michael King going to be a little bit better. I do think that the Padres find their offense a little bit more here. I did sell my total at 7.3, so you're at the 7. I'm in on the over, and I'm willing to lay up to a minus 145 on this Padres money line. 907, 908 on the betting board. The Pittsburgh Pirates playoffs to the Chicago Cubs as Matthew Boyd is on the bump for the Cubbies, and you've got for the Pittsburgh Pirates Carmen Moldazinski, and Pirates are pretty sizable underdogs, heading between plus 143 to a plus 150, minus 162 to minus 175. That number on the Cubs 9 is the total. The under is minus 120. The over is even money, and with the Chicago Cubs, I feel like this number is starting to get a little bit too far on them. I was willing to lay up to minus 143 with them, so at a plus 144 higher, that did put me on the Pittsburgh Pirates. For Moldazinski, he was much better in the bullpen last season than he was as a starter, and this has been a little bit of a unmitigated disaster for them, but it's not as if the Chicago Cubs bullpen has really been all that special as well, and I do fear that there's going to be a little bit of regression coming in for Matthew Boyd. And as a matter of fact, for the Chicago Cubs, if you take a look at their bullpen ERA entering into yesterday, 4.99. Only the Philadelphia Phillies and the Washington Nationals have a worse bullpen ERA, so that is something that you need to be taking into account with this. And for Matthew Boyd, he's always been a guy that's had a little bit of a tough time lending a lot of length because he does do a good job of being able to get strikeout numbers, but that does knock him out of starts early. He has been able to do a much better job of being able to amend that recently, 5 1/3 innings or more in each of his last 4 starts. And thus far this season for the Cubs, he does have a 2.54 ERA that is backed up by a 4.02 fielding independent, though. He has been seeing a drop off in his strikeout numbers with about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he is giving up north of 3 walks per 9 innings. So that is a little bit of a concern for Moldazinski. Again, it's been rough for him, 6.95 ERA. I believe that he's a little bit better than that. The 3.84 fielding independent says that he throughout his career has given up less than a home run per 9 innings. He also has his walks issues, and I am very comparable numbers to Matthew Boyd. 7.5 strikeouts, 3.7 walks per 9 innings, and he's had a tough time being able to go 5 innings thus far this season, which is not a good thing because Pittsburgh Pirates, they just get Colton Holderman back, and well, he's not being able to hold on anything thus far this season. David Bednar has been a mess over the last 12 months. You're currently without Dennis Santana. Justin Lawrence just hit the injured list. I actually like Joey Wentz as a little bit of a long guy, but those are issues right there. But for the Pittsburgh Pirates, O'Neal Cruz is finally starting to deliver for the team. North of a 360 on base, 8 home runs entering into yesterday. Nobody else on the roster with north of 3 home runs, though. Brian Reynolds started out the year shaky, starting to find it a little bit more, but 3 bombs, less than a 300 on base going into yesterday. Tommy Pham is sitting below the Mendoza line 200, and this entire bottom of the lineup, the likes of Jared Trollo, Andy Rodriguez, Jack Swiniski, Henry Davis, like, you just go down the list, and none of these guys are hitting, and you do have a Chicago Cubs team that right now leads the league in terms of runs per game, and that's headlined by the fact that they picked up Kyle Tucker in the offseason, and he has delivered, and then some 7+ home runs, nearly a 400 on base going to yesterday, but and the bottom of the fold has been good. Pete Crow Armstrong, 5 home runs and north of 325 on base going into yesterday. You've had Nico Horner do a nice job of being able to move the line for the team. Michael Busch is starting to deliver north of a 380 on base out of him. You've gotten a lot of bombs out of Seiya Suzuki. He's been able to give you a 350 on base. So, this has been a 1 through 9 that has been very rock solid. We're seeing Matt Shaw has had a little bit of a rough go of it thus far this season, but past that, everyone else is supplying. But I do think that you're going to see Boyd be able to give you a relatively okay start here. But I do think that Maldazinski is going to be able to step up. He's going to be able to lend a relatively good start in this spot. So I do feel like this total has gone a little bit too high. I did set my total more than 8.3. I do think that the Cubs are going to be cooled down just a little bit. So I'm going to be in on this total under, and being able to get this big of a plus number, I am in on that Pittsburgh Pirates money line. 909, 910 on the betting board. The St. Louis Cardinals hit the road. They're facing off against the Cincinnati Reds. And yes, we are in the Cincinnati. He's on to Andrew Abbott getting the start for them, and Steven Matz goes for the Cardinals. The Cardinals are pretty sizable underdogs, anywhere between plus 110 to a plus 115. Meanwhile, for the Redlegs, anywhere between minus 121 to minus 130 is that number. 9.5 is the total. The under is minus 120. The over is even, and for the Reds, I did set them at a minus 146. I'm going to be willing to lay the money line. For Steven Matz, I just really don't have any faith in him whatsoever. He has went over the last 12 months from being a starter to being back in the bullpen to being starter to being back in the bullpen, and he's just been up, down, all around for the team, and he hasn't necessarily been amazing in the last few seasons. So I will say, thus far this season, in 20 innings, he's been able to do a nice job. 180 ERA, 227 fielding dependent, but I just fear that when he gets that start, things are just going to go straight down the toilet bowl for him. He did get one start earlier in the season against the Houston Astros, did supply in that one. 5 innings, only gave up 1 run, but still, that was on April 16th. This is 2 weeks from now, and he has thrown in that time span 3 1/3 innings across 2 appearances, so you have to question the length, even if he is going to be able to do a nice job of firing here, and he has been seeing a drop-off in his strikeout numbers as well. And then on the flip side, you do have a guy named Andrew Abbott that I really think has quite a bit of upside. He was pitching for Virginia, I believe, in the College World Series just a few short years ago. He's been able to do a nice job of being able to up his swing and miss stuff. As a rookie, he was getting 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, and it's a small sample size here of 3 starts, but 20 punch-outs in 15 innings this far this season. Has been giving up the deep ball throughout his career. He does give up 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, and you do have a St. Louis Cardinals team that has a little bit of power. Ivan Herrera being on the injured list certainly hurts this team, but still you've been able to get some relatively good just overall contact, and guys are able to move the line out of someone like a Brandon Donovan, who's been able to 350 for this unit. Lars Nootbaar, he's been able to do a nice job, giving you nearly a 400 on base with 4 home runs this far this season. Nolan Arenado's not hitting for the same amount of power that he did in the past, but still about a 350 on base. Victor Scott, guys like this have been able to step up for the team and for the Cincinnati Reds. Their offensive numbers are a little bit warped by the fact that they did have that massive 24-run outburst against the Baltimore Orioles about a week ago, but Ellie De La Cruz, 5 bombs. He's back up to about a 335 on base. You've been able to have Santiago Espinal move the line when he's been out there as well. Kevin Lux is now hitting north of a 350 going into yesterday, which I don't know what's gotten into him. He's not hitting for a lot of power, but man, does he move the line for the team. Jose Trevino, he's been relatively rock solid as well. And for the Reds, I just have a little bit more faith in the bullpen right now, even though the best, shall we say, relief piece in this game is going to be Ryan Elsley. The setup men like Ryan Fernandez, Jojo Romero and company for the St. Louis Cardinals, Kyle Leahy, these guys have just not been good this year, and for the Reds, I do always have fears when Emilio Pagan comes into the game. He just gives up bomb after bomb, but that said, you've got Tony Santillan, Taylor Rogers, Graham Ashcraft doing a really good job in the bullpen, and Ashcraft has been able to find just second life in general in this bullpen. Like you've been able to have Scott Barlow be able to give you some solid innings recently as well. Hit back Alexis Diaz, so do think that the Reds should be able to get the job done in this spot. I did set my total 9.2, so at a 9.5, I'm in on the under, and I'm willing to lay up to a minus 145 on this Reds money line. If this does sound like an insert, well, that's because it is, because we actually do have 9:31, 9:32 with the St. Louis Cardinals and Cincinnati Reds having a rainout on Tuesday. The game that we were supposed to get on Tuesday, that is going to be the first on Wednesday, so this is going to be the early game, the game that I broke down previously with it being Mets going up against Andrew Abbott. That is going to be the late game, but that said, assuming that we do get Brady Singer and Miles Michaelis just like we were supposed to see yesterday, and when this was taken off the board, we were seeing the Reds right around about a minus 140 or so favorite, total on that game being a 9.5. I would still be sticking with the Cincinnati Reds, and I would be going run line in this spot for the Cincinnati Reds. I was willing to take pretty much anything of a plus 130 or higher with regards to that run line. I was seeing that when it came off the board at a plus 140. Brady Singer has been rock solid for the Reds as far this season. I'm not going to call him amazing or anything like that, but he's a guy that's going to give you right around about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's going to give up in that neighborhood above 2.8, 2.9 walks per 9 innings, and he's experienced a little bit more swing and miss this season. 3.62 ERA, 3.14 fielding dependent, and he should be going up against Miles Michaelis unless we see some sort of change of Rooney, and Miles Michaelis just has not been good this year. 5.70 ERA. Now, if you look at the advanced numbers, it's a 3.11 fielding dependent because he hasn't given up any home runs this season, but you know that hard contact is coming sooner rather than later, and he's getting 4.9 strikeouts to 3.4 walks per 9 innings. I do think that the Reds are going to clobber him. Now, I just think that the Cardinals bullpen is doing for a little bit of positivity. I think that Miles Michaelis gets out there soon enough for this under to be able to hold, because I do think that Singer and the bullpen is going to be able to do their part for the Reds. So did somebody total at 9.2, so if we get a 9.5 like we were seeing yesterday, I'll be in on that under, and with the Reds would be willing to take pretty much anything of a plus 130 or higher with regards to that run line if we do indeed get Michaelis versus Brady Singer. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. The Washington Nationals hit the road. They're facing off against the Philadelphia Phillies as Jake Irvin is on the bump for the Phillies and Christopher Sanchez is on the bump for the Phillies. Right now, the lone place I'm seeing that's posted up is FanDuel, with right now the Nationals being a plus 188, minus 225. That number on the Phillies right around even money is that run line price, and the total is 8. The over is minus 120, and the under is even money. If we can find the Phillies at more like a plus 105, which I'm thinking that we should be able to find that when it's all said and done, I would be willing to take a shot here. Or if you get the Nationals at north of a plus 193, I did set my money line price at a minus 192 on the Philadelphia Phillies, so a little bit of wait and see mode there, but I do think that when it's all said and done, I do land on this Phillies run line. As for Christopher Sanchez, he has just been a completely different pitcher at home rather than on the road. You go back to last season, he was posting up a sub 230 ERA at home, north of a 5 ERA when he was on the road, so that's always something that you do want to be mindful of. And for Christopher Sanchez, he did have that rough start against the LA Dodgers at home earlier in the season, but has allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in 4 out of his 5 starts this far this season. 3.67 fielding dependent, as he has given up 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, but his swing and miss stuff is better than ever. Across his 5 starts this far this season, 33 strikeouts and about 26 or so innings, so you do have to like to see that. And for Jake Irvin, not a guy that's going to completely blow you away and is going to be just absolutely giving you the gas face fastball or anything like that. 7.5 career strikeouts per 9 innings. He's back on that thus far this season, but he has been able to do a nice job of reducing on the walks. He, as a rookie, gave up 4 walks per 9 innings. He's down to 2 walks per 9 innings this far this season, but he does have a 424 fielding dependent because he gives up a lot of hard contact, about a home run and a half per 9 innings, and you don't want that against the Philadelphia Phillies when going up against the likes of Kyle Schwarber and company. And I do think that for the Phillies, they are going to do a nice job of being able to get to him in this ordeal, as you've had Schwarber, I mentioned before, give you a 400 on base, 7 home runs this season, and you've got a lot of guys now that are just starting to move the line in general. For the Phillies, 22 home runs in their first 28 games of the season. You know that they're going to pick it up. Bryce Harper starting 370 on base with 5 home runs entering into yesterday. Bryson Stott is doing a good job of hitting about a 290 for this unit. Nick Castellanos, Trey Turner, these guys are giving you about a 345 on base, so you know that they're going to be just fine. And for the Washington Nationals in past years, they did a really good job of not swinging and missing, and this year they've been doing a whole heck of a lot of that, as you've had Jacob Cruz be able to pick it up a little bit for the team, but was a bit slow going for him. You do have James Wood, who's been able to supply 9 home runs this far this season, so he has been amazing. He's been able to give you north of 360 on base. You do now have CJ Abrams back after he was missing for about 10 or so games to start the season. He's been able to give you 4 home runs, about 60 some odd at bats, but is providing just a 270 on base. Cruz, who I mentioned before, he's up to about a 260 or so in terms of his on base. Josh Bell has been useless. He has given you 4 home runs this season, but he's hitting a $140, so you need a little bit more there. Paul DeYoung being on the injured list has hurt them. Jake Jacob Young not giving you a ton. That's been a bit of an issue, though I do like Nathaniel Lowe. And this is the Washington Nationals bullpen that currently has an ERA that's hovering right around 7. Kyle Finnegan has been the only guy that's been able to give you any sort of good innings whatsoever. Like, man, it's not great. He and Jackson Rutledge are like the only two guys that see consistent relief appearances that are posting up an ERA that is a sub 5.5. Like Eduardo Salazar, Ori Lopez, Lucas Sims, Colin Pouchet, these guys have all been absolute gas cans for the team thus far this season. So that's not necessarily great. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, this has been also one of your worst bullpens in the big leagues in terms of the ERA, as well as you've had Ryan Kerkering just not be the guy that he was from 8 seasons ago. Now, Matt Strahm, Jose Alvarado, these guys have been pretty good for the team, but outside of those two guys, what are you going to be able to get out of many of these other players? What are you going to be able to get out of someone like Jose Ruiz? What are you going to be able to get moving forward out of Tanner Banks? These guys are a bit of a roll of the dice, but certainly I do think that Christopher Sanchez going to go out there, going to be able to shove. I did set my total at 8.3, so being able to get an 8, I'm in on the over. And like I said, with the Phillies, if I could get a plus 103 or higher, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on that run line, as we got 9-13, 9-14 on the main board. The Arizona Diamondbacks hit the road. They're facing off against the New York Mets. Right now, it's all to be determined. On the bump for the Metropolitans, and Corbin Burns is on the bump for the Diamondbacks, so this game is off the board. But that said, it was looking like Kodai Senga was going to get the start here. It looks like he's going to get an extra day of rest. If you do end up getting Kodai Senga, this is pretty much a 50-cent upgrade for the New York Mets. But in a bullpen game, I would be setting this as a relative pick'em line. I did set the Mets at a minus 102, and I made my total to where an 8.5 or less, I'd be in on the over, a 9 or higher to the under. Corbin Burns is just not the same pitcher that he was a few seasons ago. Heck, he's not the same pitcher that he was towards the front half of the season last year, if I'm being honest. He has had his struggles this far this season. He's posting up an ERA that is north of a 4. His strikeouts per 9 rate over the last 2 seasons is 8.4 strikeouts per 9. He's been giving up about 4 walks per 9 innings. He's given up a little bit more hard contact as his fielding independent is now a 472, and he has given up 4 home runs in his last 5 starts. So big time concerns here. Now for the New York Mets, they've had a little bit of tough time being able to put bat to ball at home this far this season, but much of that has been due to the fact that the conditions out there in the lovely state of New York have not necessarily been the world's greatest, and you know that Juan Soto is going to be able to pick it up sooner rather than later. He has been only able to supply the team with 3 home runs this far this season, but I know that you're going to be able to get good performances out of him moving forward. And I mean, when it comes to the Mets, you've had Pete Alonso be absolutely incredible for the team, as he's supplying the team with about a 450 on base. He's been able to give you 5+ home runs. He's done a nice job moving the line. Francisco Lindor is back up to hitting above a 300. Brandon Nimmo is out giving 6 home runs, albeit not necessarily doing the world's greatest job of being able to get on base. And you've had that with a few guys. It's been a little bit of a rough go of it for the likes of Mark Vientos and company, but they seem to be figured out. And Luan Acuna has been very good for the team. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks, this has been your top team in all of baseball in terms of run scoring since the beginning of the 2024 campaign. And now you finally have Corbin Carroll living up to all of his promise. As for Corbin Carroll, north of 375 on base, he has supplied the team with 9 home runs this season. He was playing injured last season. I am fully convinced of that. Then Josh Naylor, who they picked up in the offseason, hitting above a 300. And Eugenio Suarez hits for no average whatsoever, but among his 20 hits going into yesterday, 10 of them have flown over the fence, including 4 home runs in a game. Tim Tebow, 4 bombs in his first 47 career plate appearances. Pavin Smith is giving you north of 450 on base. The concern for the Arizona Diamondbacks is that you don't have A.J. Puck in this bullpen right now. You still have some relatively solid guys that I think are somewhat trustworthy. Jalen Beeks has been a little bit shaky recently just with regards to his health, but when he's out there, he's solid. Shelby Miller, Justin Martinez, these guys have actually been able to supply a sub-1 ERA this season, but you do have some less than trustworthy guys, so I do think that J.P. Fireeisen is pretty rock solid. But again, if you do get some sort of a New York Mets bullpen or some sort of a young gun starter, this has been a Mets team that has been in the top 8 with regards to bullpen ERA this season. You've got some long guys that have been very good, like Max Kronick, Oscar Barzobin. These 2 guys are able to give you multiple innings or both give you a sub-260 ERA. We have seen Jose Buto be a little bit rough, but I'm still a believer in him. I think that he could be able to supply some good innings in this one. Edwin Diaz has honestly been the biggest issue in this bullpen, not named Jose Urena. Jose Urena is just absolutely awful, but that said, I do think that if the Mets do find themselves in a bullpen game, they should be a very, very slight favorite. I set this at a minus 102, so pretty much whichever team would be getting plus money is what I'd be taking a look at there. And then an 8.5 or less in on the over 9 or higher to the under. 915, 916 on the betting board. It is the Detroit Tigers. They're on the road. They're facing off against the Houston Astros. We do know that Jackson Jobe is going to be on the bump for the Detroit Tigers. Right now, the betting board reads to be determined for the Houston Astros. This game is currently off the board as Hayden Wesneski was expected to be the starter, but he is not going to go. And right now, AJ Bluebaugh is on the taxi squad, and he is expected to go. And I have projected as if it is going to be Jackson Jobe against Bluebaugh. And right now, I've got the Tigers as a minus 126 favorite, so would be willing to lay up to a minus 125 there. Plus 127 or higher would be willing to go with Bluebaugh and company. And total is 8.5 to the over and a 9 or higher to the under, as I did set my total at an 8.8. And for Bluebaugh, he actually pitched for UW Milwaukee, so shout out there. I know that there were a few guys from my high school that were actually on his team, but he was over at UW Milwaukee back in the day, so yay, barely there. But I knew he was pitching for the Space Cowboys this season, getting 12 strikeouts per 9 innings. The strikeout stuff is honestly there. The lack of command is as well. Throughout his career at the minor league level, darn near 4 walks per 9 innings. He's probably going to knock himself out of his start early. Now, I will say, for the Houston Astros, they have had one of the best bullpens in all of baseball in terms of ERA. That said, this is starting to be a very taxed bullpen, though, as feels like Brian King and Brian Abreu have to pitch darn near every day at this point, along Steven Okert, and Okert has been amazing. A sub-1 ERA. I don't know how sustainable that's going to be. Bennett Sousa is probably going to be seeing a few more innings as well. Logan Van Way has been seeing a few innings. I think that Forrest Whitley, if he's still at the big league level, they might make him a little bit of an option to go multiple innings as well, as I know that he came up as a starter. But the bigger concern for the Houston Astros is that this has not necessarily been the world's greatest lineup this far this season, as the power numbers are lacking. 23 home runs in 28 games going into yesterday. You've had Jose Altuve move the line, 4 home runs, gives you about a 315 on base. And Isaac Paredes right around about a 345 on base, 4 home runs out of him. But Yordan Alvarez, just 3 home runs, hitting only a 220 going into yesterday. Got quite a few guys that just can't find a way on base. Yandy Diaz going into yesterday had a 200 on base percentage. Haven't gotten anything out of Brendan Rodgers. Cam Smith is inconsistent. He's still a rookie, so he's going to figure it out. But Christian Walker has not had the impact that they were hoping that he would as well. And for the Detroit Tigers, all of a sudden, this has been an offense that has been able to erupt, as you've had Spencer Torkelson supply 8 home runs. The on-base percentage is starting to go downward a little bit, but he still gives you about a 350 or so on base. Riley Green, he's up to 6 bombs after a little bit of a cold start to the season. He's starting to pick it up. Zach McKinstry has been able to give you north of 400 on base. Still need a little bit more of some of these guys like a Cole Keith, Trey Sweeney and company, but Javi Baez has been much more useful than a poopy-flavored lollipop, so that's good. And Gary Carpenter has been able to supply the team with 6 home runs thus far this season. And for the Tigers, since the All-Star break of the 2024 campaign, this has been a top 5 team with regards to their bullpen ERA. You've got so many guys who you're able to mix and match with. Brian Herter is able to give you multiple innings. John Brebbia, Will Vest, Tommy Kahnle have all been able to give you a 1 ERA or better, and Brendan Hennefy has been rock solid. I like what Tyler Holden brings to the table, and Jackson Jobe is a young guy who has a lot of promise. He's only getting about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, so he's going to need to improve that, but he's kept the ball in the yard, giving up just 2 home runs in 20 innings. His walks numbers are a little bit concerning, 4.5 walks per 9 innings. His fielding independent, much higher than the 270 ERA, so did set a little bit of higher total, but I do think that he's going to be figuring out as the season goes along, so I'm willing to go up to a minus 125 on the Tigers, plus 127 or higher. Looking at the Astros, and then 8.5 or less, I like the over 9 or higher, the under. 917, 918 on the betting board. The LA Angels are going to be on the road against the Seattle Mariners, as Emerson Hancock is on the bump for Seattle, and you've got Mr. Tyler Anderson, who's going to be on the bump for the Angels. 8 is the total, the over is minus 120, and the under is even, seeing an 8.5 out there as well. That under is minus 115, over is minus 105, and for Seattle, they're between minus 140 to minus 148 favorites, between plus 122 to plus 130 is that number on Los Angeles. I did set my total at 7.3. I do like the under. I recognize that Emerson Hancock throughout his career has not been some sort of strikeout artist or anything like that, but this is an LA Angels team that is very all or nothing at the plate, and that they've been one of your best home run teams in all baseball, but they've also been the team that entered into yesterday with a 210 batting average, which is dead last in the big leagues. For Hancock, he had that just absolute blow-up start where he gave up, I believe it was 6 runs in 2/3 of an inning, but since then, he has been able to do a much better job, giving up a combined 4 runs over his last 11 innings in his last 2 starts, and swing and miss stuff is up. He's getting 8.5 strikeouts for 9 innings. That's much improved from his career 6 strikeouts for 9 innings. It's always been a relatively good command pitcher, only about 2.5 or so walks per 9 innings, and for Tyler Anderson, you date it back to the beginning of the 2024 campaign. He has honestly been able to do a really good job on the road. On the road to 275 ERA, giving up just 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. Much of his issues actually came at home, so I do find that to be very intriguing. Now for the LA Angels, they just need to find more consistency in terms of moving the line, especially in this sort of spot where you're in Seattle, where it suppresses offense more than Coors Field elevates offense if you look at the ballpark factor. So I think that that's very important to be noting, and for the LA Angels, you've had Mike Trout be able to do a nice job of being able to slug out the deep ball, but he's sitting below a 200 this year. 9 home runs entering into yesterday out of his 17 total hits, hitting just $170. Taylor Ward with 6 home runs, but he's hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Kyron Paris, he's been able to give you 5 home runs, but he's been inconsistent as well. Nolan Nolan Schulnell has been able to move the line a little bit along Zach Neto, but for the Seattle Mariners, all of a sudden they've erupted with their lineup as Cal Raleigh, he's not hitting for a ton of average, but he's got 10 home runs, so you'll take that. Luke Raley, Randy Rosarena, Rowdy Tellez, they need to give you a bit more in terms of average along with Julio Rodriguez, but they've been starting to pick it up. Jorge Polanco hitting north of a 370 going into yesterday with 7 home runs. He's looked amazing, and this is a Seattle Mariners bullpen that I'm not going to call it great, I'm not going to call it terrible, because you do have Andres Munoz, one of the best closers that you're going to find in all of baseball. Edward Bazardo has been able to give you a few good innings recently. Trent Thornton is someone that's always very iffy, along with a guy like a Taylor Cicado, but Colin Snyder and guys like this have been able to step up for this bullpen. And for the LA Angels, I really do like Kenley Jansen, and the fact that in non-pressure situations, when the lights aren't the brightest, he's always very, very good, and that's never going to be that with the LA Angels, so that's a nice thing. And Reed Detmers has been a nice add to this bullpen along with Ryan Seferian, but that said, the likes of Ryan Johnson, Brock and Roll, Burke and company, they just have not been solid, and I do think that for the Seattle Mariners, they are going to be able to get in that bullpen. I do think that they're going to put some runs up on the board. If you're looking at a run line price of the Seattle Mariners, you should be able to get that north of plus 140. I was willing to take a plus 130 or higher on that, so I'm going to be looking to mitigate a little bit of juice. I'm going to be looking at that run line, as a matter of fact, right now, seeing the opener of plus 145, so looking at the run line, but I did set my total 7.3. I think that both starters want a good start, so in on the under. 919, 920 on the betting board. The Cleveland Guardians play out to the Minnesota Twins as Pablo Lopez is on the bump for the Twins, and you do have Mr. Luis Ortiz on the bump for Cleveland. 7.5 is the total. The over and the under, anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. For Minnesota, they're anywhere between minus 130 to minus 142 favorites. And between plus 118 to plus 122 is that number on Cleveland. And I'm willing to take a plus 119 or higher on the Guardians for Pablo Lopez. He did miss a few starts due to injury, and he has been a guy that, if you look at the advanced numbers, they all say that there should be positivity, but it just seems to never ever come from. As for Lopez, in his 4 starts thus far this season, he's been pretty superb. 2.80 ERA, he has given up just 2 home runs in his 21 2/3 innings. Strikeout numbers have been a little bit down from his earlier time with the Minnesota Twins, but still he's been able to do a rock solid job. And if you look, since he's joined the Minnesota Twins, he is up to about a 3.77 ERA, 3 fielding dependent though, closer to about a 3.46, so he has been a little bit unlucky, but still always have to have my question marks and my trepidations there. And Luis Ortiz, not going to be some sort of strikeout artist or anything like that, but all he needs to do is line like 5 solid innings, and then from there the Cleveland Guardians bullpen is still number 1 in the big leagues in terms of ERA since the beginning of the 2024 campaign, and Ortiz has been getting tagged quite a bit in ERA that's hovering right around 6, but he has been this season giving you about 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but that's up from his career numbers of more like 7.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, but needs to tame down the walks. For his career, about 4 walks per 9 innings. That's a bit of an issue, but for the Minnesota Twins, even though over the last few days we've seen them look a little bit better in terms of their offense, this is still not necessarily a team that I trust too much, as you've got Bryce Lewis, Willie Castro, Matt Wallner on the injured list, and Byron Buxton has been able to supply 6 home runs. He's starting to give you a little bit more average, but he's not drawing any walks whatsoever. Harrison Bader has been stuck on 3 home runs since dinosaurs roamed the earth, but at the very least, he's been able to give you a little bit more in terms of on-base percentage. Ty France has been an okay ad. He's been able to give you about a 330 on base, not necessarily hitting for a lot of power, but you just need a guy to be able to get on base, because you've had the likes of a Christian Vasquez. I know that he's been injured, but Jose Miranda, guys like this that just have not found a way to get on base. Trevor Larnach has had a little bit of a tough time there. Eduardo Juliana has been very streaky and inconsistent as well. And Carlos Correa is starting to pick it up a little bit, but man, he's been off to a rough start to the season as well. And then for the Cleveland Guardians, it's a very top-heavy lineup. Carl Manzardo not aiming for a lot of average, but has been able to give the team 7 home runs. Gabriel Ruiz along with Jose Ramirez, both between about a 315 to a 321 on base with a combined 9 home runs, but they've been stagnant over the last week or so. Steven Kwan at the leadoff spot is giving you a 395 on base, but likes of a Nolan Jones, John Kenzie Noel, Bo Naylor, Lane Thomas, these guys have just not been able to give you a lot in terms of moving the line, getting on base. Jones is dealing with a little bit of an injury as well, but I mean, it's not like he's been great to start with. And speaking of not great, that's been the season of MU Class A thus far. But as I said, if you can get 5 solid innings, you should be fine, because you do have the likes of Jacob Junis, Joey Cantillo, Hunter Gaddis, Cade Smith, who've all been able to give you a sub 250 ERA. Tim Herron is still pretty solid in that bullpen as well. You do want to be avoiding Paul Sewald. He's not necessarily a guy that I trusted. And then on the flip side for the Minnesota Twins, you've had Griffin Jacks get all jacked up thus far this season, and it's not been great from him. But I mean, this is a bullpen that overall, I don't think that's going to be great. I don't think that's going to be awful. Danny Kalum was a really good pickup in the offseason bullpen. They're now getting Brock and Roll Stewart back out there as well. You on and on. I've always believed is one of the guys with the most nasty stuff in all of baseball as well, so it is an interesting circumstance. I did set my total 7.9. Pablo Lopez has been a little bit shaky throughout his career, and Luis Ortiz has been a bit rough, so do like the over, but at a plus 119 or higher, looking at the Cleveland money line. 921, 922 on the betting board. The New York Yankees, they throw the facing off against the Baltimore Orioles. Kate Povich is on the bump for Baltimore, and Carlos Cookie Carrasco is on the bump for the Yankees. And the Yankees, who find themselves anywhere between minus 115 to minus 120 favorites, and between even money to plus 107 is that number on Baltimore. 9.5 is the total. Over is between minus 115 to minus 125. Under is between minus 105 to a plus 105. And for the Orioles, I did set them at a minus 124. I'm going to be willing to back them on the money line. Carlos Carrasco is just completely washed, and since the beginning of the 2021 season, he's got north of a 5.1 ERA and is supplying north of 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, doing the same this far this season. 5.26 ERA, 5.32 fielding dependent, 1.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. Now, obviously, the New York Yankees lineup that backs him up is very rock solid. They entered into yesterday averaging about 5.4 runs per contest. That is number one out there in the American League, as you've had Anthony Volpe fall off the table quite a bit for the team, but Aaron Judge darn near 500 on base with 8 home runs entering into yesterday. Just absolutely incredible. Jazz Chisholm is not moving the line, but he's given the team 7 home runs thus far this season. Ben Rice has been incredible, about a 370 on base with 6 home runs. Trent Grisham, who has had some rough seasons recently, 7 bombs, small sample size, but he's looking really good. And Paul Goldschmidt is giving you north of 400 on base as well. And then for Kate Povich, thus far this season, he's got north of 5 ERA. The fielding dependence closer to about a 430, but his swing and miss stuff is not necessarily amazing. He's been giving up a lot of hard contact as well for his career, about 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. But for the New York Yankees, Luke Weaver, he has been amazing in the bullpen, and when they've given Brett Hendrick opportunities, he's been solid, so I don't understand why they aren't doing more of that. Ian Hamilton is a guy that I think has a little bit of upside, but when it comes to some of the longer guys like a Ryan Yarbrough, they had to throw, I believe, on Monday, he's been an issue. Devin Williams has been absolutely terrible in this bullpen. Fernando Cruz has been pretty rock solid thus far this season, but I do have a little bit of trepidation and fear that he's going to regress a little bit too. And with the Baltimore Orioles, Yunier Cano, Felix Bautista, if you're able to get the ball to those two guys, they are rock solid. They are very locked down. Now, outside of that, Keegan Aiken has actually been relatively okay as a long guy, but you do have some guys like a Brian Baker who's going to be a little bit hit or miss. Gregory Soto just has not been able to find it in general. Grant Wolfram is someone that's getting innings for the team, and that's not a place where you want to be, but I do think that Kate Povich gives a little bit of better start than Carlos Cookie Carrasco, and I do think that an Orioles lineup that has been very hit or miss recently is going to be able to come to the forefront. Cedric Mullins has been amazing thus far this season. He's been able to supply the team with darn near a 430 on base. Now, he's been dealing with a little bit of injury, but should be all good to go now. He's been able to give you some good, just solid contact in general. I know that they were dealing with Adley Rutschman along with Jordan Westbrook, dealing with a few injuries as well, so that's been hurting this team for Westbrook. I believe that he landed on the injured list. There's already without Tyler O'Neill, so that's been an issue, but Ryan O'Hearn giving north of 350 on base. I do believe that Ryan Mountcastle is going to start to pick it up a little bit more as well, and I do think that this game is going to be very conducive to runs. I set my total at a 9.5, so here at the 9.5, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over. And for the Baltimore Orioles, I do feel like they should be the favorites, at them at a minus 124, so looking at them on the money line. 923, 924 on the betting board. The Tampa Bay Rays play host the Kansas City Royals. For the Royals, it's all to be determined, and Drew Rasmussen goes for the Rays, and I have Noah Cameron right now slotted as the starter for the Kansas City Royals. Reports are that he is going to be making his MLB debut, and if you do indeed get Mr. Cameron going up against the Rays and Drew Rasmussen, I did set the Rays at a minus 145 on the money line, so we'll be willing to lay up to a minus 144 with them, plus 146 or higher looking at the Royals, and then set a total to where an 8.5 or less, looking at the over 9 or higher to the under. Without question, Steinbrenner Stadium is right now lending for a much better ballpark factor for these hitters than the Trop ever did, so that's going to be very big. And for Noah Cameron, this is going to be his MLB debut after he was solid at Omaha this season, pitching at the AAA level. He was able to get about 11 strikeouts per 9 innings, and for his career at the minor league level, 11.3 strikeouts, 2.6 walks per 9 innings. Doesn't necessarily have the world's greatest record, but I don't put too much into that. You look at more of the advanced numbers, and he's been able to do a pretty rock solid job, and he's been able to progress every single season that he's been out there at the minor league level. So I actually do think that he's going to be able to give you a solid performance, and this is a Royals bullpen that all of a sudden is pretty rock solid, as you've got Lucas Erceg, who's a really nice 8th inning guy. Carlos Aceves is one of the better closers that you're going to find in all of baseball. Anel Zerpa has been a little bit of an issue thus far this season, but John Schreiber has been very good, giving you a sub 225 ERA. And then on the flip side, you do have yourself a Rays bunch that you know that they're going to be able to do a really good job of just mixing and matching in terms of that bullpen, as you got so many guys that are going to give you a sub 3.5 ERA when it's all said and done this season. Garrett Clevenger, Mason Montgomery, Hunter Biggie, Pete Fairbanks. They do have Kevin Kelly on the injured list, but still a lot of depth there. And for Drew Rasmussen, just as steady as they come. He gives you about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. He, for his career as a sub 3 ERA, he's been able to do a really good job of supplying this year. Just good innings, giving up 1 home run and 6 walks across his 5 starts, 25 2/3 innings. He did have a little bit of a blow up in that start against the Arizona Diamondbacks, but that's completely understandable. Past that, he has been a very rock solid, giving up 1 earned run or fewer, I believe, in all but one of his starts thus far this season. But again, I do think that those ballpark factors are going to be creeping in a little bit, and maybe I'm just a schmuck for this, but at some point you are going to see, in my opinion, the Kansas City Royals start to pick it up on offense. Vinny Pasquantino entered into yesterday as the top offensive force for the team, hitting 3 home runs in terms of power, not in terms of average, because you do have Bobby Witt Jr. still been able to give you north of 375 on base, but those power numbers have been down for him. You still have a lot of guys that just aren't getting on base in general for the team. Pasquantino, I mentioned before, Michael Massey, Jonathan India, Freddie Fermin, all these guys in 225 or lower, and MJ Melendez has been an abject disaster for the team. And then for the Tampa Bay Rays, it's actually been somewhat surprising what we've seen on this offense, as you do have Jonathan Aranda, who's hitting north of 300, north of 4 home runs going into yesterday. Junior Caminero has been able to give you 5 bombs. Chandler Simpson, a little bit of a young guy. Small sample size, but so far so good out of him as well. So it does lead to an interesting circumstance. I do think that the Rays put up some nice solid offensive numbers, so 8.5 or less, and on the over 9 or higher, the under end, I'm willing to take a plus 146 or higher on the Royals, minus 144 or less, laying it with the Rays. 925, 926 on the betting board. Another game that's off the board, the Boston Red Sox hit the road. They're facing off against the Toronto Blue Jays. Casey Lawrence looks to be the projected starter for the Blue Jays right now, going up against Lucas Giolito of the Boston Red Sox. Currently, this game is off the board, but Lawrence got claimed off of waivers about 48 or so hours ago. The Blue Jays need a starter, as it looks like Jose Barrios is not going to be making that start. And if you do indeed get Lawrence against Giolito, 9 or less, I'm looking at the over, 9.5 or higher, the under end. I'd be saying the Blue Jays at a minus 106 on the money line. We'll be willing to lay up to a minus 105 with them, plus 107 or higher. We'll be looking at the Boston Red Sox. For Casey Lawrence, he actually gets picked up after he was the long guy for the Seattle Mariners, and not necessarily a guy that's like super stable, not necessarily a guy that you want to be trusting in, but I mean, for Lucas Giolito, man, he did not pitch at all during the 2024 season. As we saw him during the 2023 campaign, he was a human piñata in which he was posting up a 443 fielding independent when he got sent over to the Angels, and the Cleveland Guardians was just absolutely awful with them. And those were his numbers with the White Sox. Overall, during that 2023 campaign, 527 fielding independent, giving up 2 home runs per 9 innings. And it's not like he was looking necessarily amazing in his minor league rehab starts. He made a few of them, and at the minor league level this year, he was posting up a 5.19 ERA, and his strikeout stuff wasn't there, and he was giving up darn near 7 walks per 9 innings. Not great, and he's always had trouble with regards to command. Meanwhile, for Casey Lawrence, in his few appearances with the Seattle Mariners, not great, not terrible, 3.60 ERA. He did give up a few bombs, as he gave up a pair of home runs in his 10 innings, but I mean, that's sustainable for the Blue Jays. This is a Blue Jays team that, with regards to their own offense, they have not been able to really slug out the deep ball, but you do have plenty of guys that are finding a way to be able to get on base, as Bo Bichette has been a bit north of 275 for the team. You need to get a little bit more at the bottom of the fold. These guys like Will Wagner and company just have not been able to give you much. Andres Jimenez, after a nice start to the season, he's hitting below the Mendoza line of a 200, but now they got back Darton Valshow yesterday, so that's going to help them out. George Springer has turned back the clock by hitting north of 300, and for Vlad Guerrero Jr., again, I mean, he's giving you north of a 360 on base, just 2 home runs this season. The power is going to be there, and Anthony Santander is going to hit better than the 179 that he entered into yesterday with. And for the Red Sox, a few guys at the bottom of the fold, like Sadane Rafael, Tristan Casas and company, they do need to pick it up a little bit themselves. Wyler Abreu, 5 home runs going into yesterday with a nice north of 350 on base is solid. And then Trevor Story, Alex Bregman, both give you 5 home runs apiece, both doing a good job. Getting on base is solid. Rafael Devers, rough start to the season for him, but for the Boston Red Sox, this is really a bullpen that you don't trust them. When Aroldis Chapman is your closer, I'm sorry, that's just something that I'm not in on. Garrett Woodlock, being a multi-inning guy, has been very good for the team, and Brian Bernardino has honestly given you some solid innings. Liam Hendricks is someone that is a bit of a roll of the dice, great story, but you just don't know what you're going to get out of him. Justin Slayton, some of these guys. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, I'm starting to come in on the bullpen because you do have a few solid guys out there. Now, when you get into more of the long guys, when you get into guy number 4 to guy number 5 like Brandon Little and company, it's a bit rough, but Chad Green, Jeff Hoffman, Yimi Garcia, that trio has been very good for them. I think all these guys are going to give you a sub 3.5 ERA, so it's an interesting spot. Like I said, 9 or less, looking at the over 9.5 for IR. The under, and I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 105 with the Jays, plus 107 IR. Looking at the Red Sox, 927, 928 on the betting board. You've got the Texas Rangers playing host to the Sacramento A's as Luis Severino takes the bump for the A's, and Nathan Eovaldi is on the bump for Texas. And Texas, they are back to being a pretty good-sized favorite, anywhere between minus 148 to a minus 155, between plus 130 to plus 135. That number on the A's. It is the total, the over and the under are both at minus 110. And with regards to the old Sacramento A's, I did set them at a plus 153. So looking at a chalkier money line here with Texas. If you're looking to lay a run half with the Rangers, you're probably going to be able to get that right around about a plus 135 or so. Right now I'm doing this as most of the run line prices are off the board, but right now seeing an initial plus 134. I would look a little bit more at the money line in this spot just because the Texas Rangers have been rough with regards to their offense. They have been a bottom 5 team with regards to runs per game. I do think that they're going to pick it up. This is despite the fact that Corey Seager currently on the injured list for them. You've got so many guys, Marcus Semien, Jake Berger, Jock Peterson hitting below the Mendoza 200 that you know that they're going to pick it up. Adolis Garcia has never been great with regards to his average. He's been only able to give you 4 home runs, so you're going to need to get a little bit more out of him moving forward. That's a little bit TBD, but getting back Wyatt Langford, very big as he's been hitting well above a 300. He's been able to give the team 6 home runs. He has really come into his own in season number 2. And then on the flip side, this is a Sacramento A's team that has been one of your better offensive teams in all of baseball. Got a pair of matchers in Brent Rooker along Tyler Soderstrom, who have really been able to go yards. Soderstrom, 9 home runs, north of 350 on base, and then Rooker hasn't been able to hit for as much average, but that's started to come around as well. He's been able to give the team 7 home runs, and then Shea Langelier is never going to hit for great average, but he's giving you 5 home runs. You get no walks whatsoever at Jacob Wilson, so I don't know how sustainable the 321 average is, but he's been able to do a nice job along with Miguel Andujar. The big issue that you do have with the A's, though, it is the bullpen. This is a bullpen that, other than Mason Miller, you really can't trust in. I do like what Mason Miller brings to the table. I have Tyler Ferguson. To his credit, he's been able to give you sub 1 ERA this far this season, but on El Perdomo, north of a 5 ERA. Jose Leclerc has had his issues. When you trot out there guys like Jason Alexander, TJ McFarland company, that's really rough. And for the Texas Rangers, I'm starting to warm up a little bit on this bullpen. I can't necessarily say that it's an amazing bullpen. You've had guys like Mark Church and company, in my opinion, just overperform a little bit this far this season. Then you've been able to get some really good production out of Robert Garcia. One of my guys, Caleb Belchley, I actually went to high school with him. He's a little bit of a long guy for this team that's starting to show a little bit of promise as well. Luke Jackson has been okay with regards to the closer spot, so it's an interesting circumstance because I just have not necessarily been bullish on Luis Severino. I remember a few years ago that last year with the Yankees, it was really bad, but even though the ERA has gone down, I really don't think that he's doing the world's greatest job as a pitcher. He is only getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He still gives up about 3 walks per 9. Has been a little bit fortunate in terms of not giving up the deep ball thus far this season. And to his credit, he's been able to give quite a bit of length. And for Nathan Eovaldi, this guy is just a steady Eddie guy. He's not going to put guys on base cheaply. Sometimes does have a little bit of a propensity to give up the deep ball himself, but typically towards the start of seasons, he's very rock solid, and he has been thus far this season. 221 ERA, 263 field independent, giving up less than a home run per 9 innings, getting north of 9 strikeouts per 9. I think that he goes out there, is able to do a pretty solid job of shutting down the A's, and I do think that, again, this Rangers team is going to bust out with their bats just a little bit. So somebody told it an 8.1 and an 8 or less. I like the over, and I do like the money line here of the Rangers. And then 9:29, 9:30 is how we wrap it up. Lone interleague game as the Milwaukee Brewers hit the road. They're facing off against the Chicago White Sox. As you have Shane Smith, who's going to be going on the bump for the Southsiders, and it is Tobias Myers on the bump for the Milwaukee Brewers. And for the Brewers, they are a minus 160 to a minus 155 favorite, and then you're going to be getting plus 135 to plus 143, with that number being on the White Sox. And the total on this game, it is 8. The under is minus 125, and the over is plus 105. Starting to see some 7.5s pop up, and the over is between minus 115 to minus 110. The under is between minus 105 to a minus 110. And right now, I'm looking at that run line. I am seeing that right around even money, and I'm going to be willing to take an even money run line on the Milwaukee Brewers, as Tobias Myers is doing for a little bit of regression. He's got an ERA of a 3.04 dating back to his first start of the 2024 campaign. His fielding independence is more around a 4.04, as he's given up about 2.5 walks per 9 innings. He only gets a little bit over 8 strikeouts per 9, but I do think that he's going to do a rock solid job here on a Brewers bullpen that is in the bottom 8 in the bullpen in terms of ERA in baseball. I do think that they're going to pick it up. You have a lot of these guys like Jerry Koenig, Joe Payamps, Elvis Peguero, Trevor McGill that were so rock solid last year that I do think that they're going to come back to form, and Ebner Uribe has been a really good multi-inning guy for this bullpen as well. And for the Brewers, they found a nice way to be able to move the line. As Christian Yelich and William Contreras, after rough starts to the season, they're picking it up. I still don't think we're ever going to see peak Christian Yelich, but I mean, that's been a nice find. Now the guys at the bottom of the lineup where you're mixing and matching with the likes of Jory Ortiz, Vinny Capra, guys like that. I mean, that's been a little bit rough in those 8 and 9 spots, but you've got Sal Frelick, Bryce Terang doing a nice job, both hitting above a 300. Jackson Chourio, he's not drawing any walks, but he's doing a nice job of being able to put bat to ball. And for the White Sox, this team just can't get on base. Other than Lennon Sosa, you don't have anyone with north of 35 at-bats thus far this season that has been able to really give you north of a 285 on base. Andrew Benintendi has been able to give you 4 home runs. Andrew Vaughn does give you a little bit of power, but for Andrew Vaughn, it's been very rough for him, to say the least, thus far this season. It's also not necessarily a bullpen that I'm trusting in as well, as Frazier Allard is currently on the injury list. You've had Cam Bouger be able to give you some solid innings, and Penn Murphy is off to a relatively rough start to the season, but I remember when he was with the Seattle Mariners, he was actually pretty rock solid, so I do think that there's a little bit of upside there. That said, I do think that this is one of these circumstances where you are going to see the Brewers absolutely take it to Shane Smith, who he's got an ERA that's right around about at 2.30, but a fielding dependent, that's a full point higher. He's only been able to give you about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He does give out a few walks a little bit more freely than what you'd like as well. Has been good at being able to keep the ball in the yard, and I really think that both of these teams are going to have a tough time being able to drive it out there in Chicago this time of year. It's getting a little bit warmer, but it's not necessarily the most savory of temperatures. Right now, seeing this total at an 8. I'm in on the under now. I'm starting to see the 7.5 pop up, and between a 7.5 and an 8, I'd probably rather take a 7.5 over rather than an 8 under, because even though I do think that there's positivity for this Brewers bullpen, I still have a little bit of trepidation there. And the White Sox bullpen, I really have no faith in whatsoever. So with that, I am going to be willing to take a shot on the Brewers. I'm right now seeing that run line at even money. I'd be willing to go on up to a minus 137 there. So look at that Brewers run line, and I'm going to be in on that 7.5 over, and that'll wrap things up for the Wednesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Rob Donaldson of the Rob's Best Bet Show for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways we offer this in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast, find that 5-star review, and I'll be coming at you guys every single day on this podcast during the regular season, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.